Hello, everyone, and welcome to our session, Authentic Youth and Family Engagement, Deploying Lived Experience as Advisors. My name is Kristine Gunningham, and I am a lived experience consultant working with ICF. And for our session today, we will begin with a brief overview about the roles lived experience advisors can play. Next, we'll hear from Gabriel Foley and Palmira Ramirez, who will discuss their experiences as lived experience advisors. After that, I will pass it to my colleague, Joey Cordero, to facilitate a discussion between Dee Bonnick and Michelle Rosenthal, specifically around their advising experiences and implementation of the Family Empowerment Leadership Academy, known as FELA. And then finally, we will wrap up with some key takeaways and a closing for you all. So to jump right in with an overview of lived experience advising, lived experience experts commonly serve as advisors. This is done often through groups, committees, boards, but other areas as well. And often lived experience advisors are involved for initiatives that develop national strategies, congressional reports, policy recommendations, and even capacity building efforts. Some lived experience roles include maybe providing information, feedback, and ideas related to program, policy, and research areas, and even providing ongoing consultation as part of a group, maybe as an independent consultant. There are many cross-cutting tasks. Lived experience advisors you will see on committees, work groups, advisory boards, individual consultations, review and feedback of work products, training and technical assistance. There are really a ton of ways that engaging lived experience advisors for systems change and improvement can be done. Now we will shift gears into our discussion with Palm and Gabe, who are two lived experience experts who have been in an advisor role in multiple impressive capacities. And I will pass it to Palm and Gabe to introduce themselves.
Thank you very much, Kristine, for that warm introduction. As Kristine mentioned, my name is Gabriel Foley. My pronouns are he, him, his. I'm a Division X consultant on the ICF team, and I got my start in advising quite a bit ago and have seen, as Kristine mentioned, a lot of roles and opportunities ever since. I started in advising around 17 or 18 when I was offered the chance to attend an Illinois State Youth Advisory Board meeting, just to see how I appreciated the vibe. I very nervously attended the meeting and kind of sat in the back and didn't engage too much, but I really appreciate the emphasis that the state staff put on youth voices and youth experience. I decided to continue attending those calls and found my comfortability more and more as I continued going, ultimately to the point that I decided to join the Illinois State Youth Advisory Board as their Central Region intern. These calls began picking up, and I was really proud of how the state of Illinois prioritized youth voice and made sure that every voice on a call or in a meeting was captured, gathered, and put to good use within the state system. Ultimately, the State Youth Advisory Board became much more than just regular town halls or small group meetings. I began working with community partners. I began leading some of the calls that I'd become accustomed to. And probably most notably, I began meeting regularly with the DCFS director in the state of Illinois. These meetings served as an opportunity for myself and my peers on the State Youth Advisory Board to report out to the DCFS director in our state on challenges and barriers and issues that we had identified in our work, and then work collaboratively with the director, his team, and the entire Illinois DCFS office to identify solutions and fixes to the challenges that we had addressed. Ultimately, the experiences and opportunities that I gathered with the Illinois State Youth Advisory Board led me to a variety of different advising roles. This includes the Illinois Children and Family Services Advisory Council, which is an advisory council that works directly with the Illinois Governor's Office, as well as the Division X team, which I still serve on today. For those who may not be familiar with it, the Division X Technical Assistance Project has been a collaborative effort with the Children's Bureau to support states, tribes, and territories to improve their service delivery to youth and young adults currently and formerly in foster care. I've been able to take part in nearly every aspect of our work here with the Division X team, which is broken down to about 5 focus areas. The first and probably most important of these focus areas has been our targeted assistance projects, which is our direct service and consultation to states, tribes, and territories. Some examples of topics we're working on within these projects are supporting states in developing LGBTQIA and two-spirited plus host homes, enhancing college ambassador programs, and working to find safe and stable housing within some states. I've also been able to lead and take part in our regional peer calls, which are calls like our national peer group events, where states within the region are able to discuss topics and share their knowledge to explore innovations and solutions collaboratively. I've also worked on, as I mentioned, the universal events, which are national events to inform the work that all state agencies are doing. It is yet another space for agencies to come together and work collaboratively, fostered by the Division X team. I've also worked with the team in the development of nationwide products, social media and marketing outreach of everything Division X, and the compilation of tools and resources in resource repositories that we're able to share out. To say it's been a diverse working experience has been an incredible understatement. I'm very proud of the work I've been able to do with Division X, but more than that, I'm proud of how the work that I've been able to do with Division X has continued my snowballing of experience that started originally a few years ago with the Illinois State Youth Advisory Board. I know I'm incredibly proud of all the work I've been able to do, but Palm, I know that you had a bit of a similar start, so I will pass the torch to you to go into some detail about all the great work you've been able to do.
Thank you, Gabe. Hi, everybody. My name is Palm Ramirez. I am a youth advocate liaison with the Fostering Connections Bureau at CYFD, that is Children's Youth and Families Department here in New Mexico. And yes, as Gabe has said, my start was also in an advisory board. It was called LUVIA, that stands for Leaders Uniting Voices, Youth Advocate of New Mexico. I know that's a huge title, that's why we say LUVIA. And I just want to say that when I first started this kind of work, it was not my cup of tea. It was not something that I thought I would do. It's definitely, if I look back to the 10 years ago, little 15-year-old that I was, I would never have imagined myself in this position. I was kind of that quiet person that sat in the back, didn't really want to say anything during these meetings. But as I sat in these meetings and I kind of heard my peers talk about really important issues that were also affecting my life at the time, it was so hard to just like sit back and not say anything, to sit there and just hear these things, these commonalities that we have with our stories, the way we were being treated, the way our cases were handled. It became so overwhelming that one day I just, at the top of my lungs, just started ranting and saying, this needs to change, this can't happen. And, you know, luckily we had adult supporters in the room that were willing and open to listen to us and not just take it as, oh, you know, they're teenagers, they're angry, they're ranting. And they actually took it as, we need to make change. These young people are telling us that this needs to change. And so, you know, that's kind of how I started this whole journey, was in the advisory group. And through them, I've had amazing opportunities in not only my professional development, but also just in general, in the way that I present myself and the confidence that I have as a speaker, and, you know, things like this. I just kind of go back to that advisory group every time. Some of the things that we've done in the advisory group that I'm really proud of, and, you know, it kind of goes back to my work here that I'm doing in CYFD now, is we did a lot of policy and procedure changes. You know, anything that we thought just wasn't fitting right. For example, I guess I should be a little more specific. I'll give a specific example. One of the things that we had while I was in care was you had this binder full of every choice you ever made in foster care that would follow you around. And it wouldn't only follow you around, it would predate you. So before a foster family would get you, they would get this binder. And it would have all your mental health assessments. It would have all the medications you're on. It would have everything that they thought was relevant to this foster parent needing to give you care, it would go to this foster parent. So then the foster parent would read this file and see all of these behaviors that you have, or everything that, it was your narrative, but it wasn't the narrative that you created for yourself. And it ruined a lot of opportunities for young people to get loving families because this binder followed them, or this binder predated them. And so in this advisory group, we were talking about it, and we kind of noticed like, wow, that happened to you? Yeah. And that happened to you too? Yeah. How do we change this? How do we make this not a thing? So then we started doing more like, let's work on a policy and procedure that says that foster parents have to meet young people. Let's work on a policy and procedure that says that, this binder doesn't exist, or this binder only stays with the caseworker. It doesn't go to the family. And if it does go to the family, it's for them to add their notes, and that's it. So as we know with policy and procedure, change is slow. It doesn't always come at a fast pace. It doesn't always come whenever we want. And a lot of the work that I did in this advisory board when I was younger has come full circle to now. So 10 years later, and I finally get to work in a position where I see some of the change that I had created then. But then I didn't see it. And it was very frustrating at times, working in a system where you felt like you were doing everything you can to make a change and things just weren't getting better. But now with, hindsight, looking back, I'm just like, foster care has changed so much in that amount of time. And I think a lot of it has to do not only with the fact that Levia is still a thing, it's still, we still have an advisory group, and I'm actually in my role in charge of being the liaison for that advisory group now. So, full circle for me. But, I think it's also because young people feel empowered to make change. And it's not just young people, it's families. Here in New Mexico, we have different initiatives that are starting to look at the root of a problem, and not just this one person or this one mom, this one parent, or these parents together made a mistake. It's now, how do we help this family? How do we give resources to this family as a unit? How do we make this family as a unit stronger? And how do we prepare them for the possibility of, fail safely? Let's get you to a point where, if you fail, that's okay. How do we work through that? And I think that's amazing to see whenever you see work that you've worked so hard for actually come full circle and create change, not only in what you intended, but in other places too. We have amazing initiatives. We have amazing practice models that we use. In my unit, we have a practice model that we use that helps us learn how to engage with young people. In my unit, we work only with young people that are ages 14 to 26, aging out of foster care. And, they need something different. They need different support than people need whenever they're younger. They don't need the same support that a 4-year-old, 5-year-old in foster care needs. They need to understand how to be an adult. They need to understand, how to make lasting, healthy relationships. It's just so many different things that they need, that it's not fair to lump everybody into these basic services, and these practice models help to target things and to target maybe problems that we're seeing, or have better outcomes for young people, or help to have better outcomes for young people. I think that something that I like to go back to a lot is, in this practice model that we use in my unit, we have these core values. And number 4 on this core values list says that young people with lived experience know best what services they need. And I think that's so true. How else are we going to understand the needs of somebody else if we don't ask them? If I just assume that you like the color yellow and your favorite color is blue, and there's going to be that miscommunication until I ask you what your favorite color is. And I think that that's so important is, it's not asking their favorite color, but it's asking, what do you want to do for the rest of your life? What services do you need? What do you need my help with to help you accomplish what you're moving towards? And I think that it's so important to ask those things. And that's why people with lived experience as advisors, it's such an important thing. And that's why speaking with people that have lived experience as advisors is so important to this work, because not only is it going to let us know exactly what they need and what they want to achieve, but it's going to help us get lasting outcomes that are going to work best for them. And I am just so glad to be part of this and be part of a movement that is so catered to making sure that we have individualized services for everybody. So thank you guys. And I look forward to hearing what we have next.
Thank you so much, Palm and Gabe, for sharing your amazing experience with advising. And I will now pass it to Joey Cordero to introduce himself and a bit of his experience and to introduce our next speakers.
Hey everybody, my name is Joey Cordero from San Francisco, California. First and foremost, I'm a father that reunified with my daughter through the child welfare system. And after that, I just really got inspired to do the work. Started facilitating one of the first fatherhood groups with child welfare involved fathers. Started facilitating that group and developed curriculum in that group. And then I moved into becoming part of the San Francisco Fatherhood Initiative and actually chaired that initiative for about a decade. I'm here with you all today as a family consultant for the Center of the States. And I actually have the pleasure of introducing our dynamic speakers. And they do a lot more than just speak, and I'll let them tell you about that. But Dee Bonnick and Michelle Rosenthal will be talking with you now, and I'd like to hand it to Dee actually first to tell you a little bit more about herself.
Hello, everyone. My name is Dee Bonnick, and I am the Senior Family Consultant with the Capacity Building Center for States. And I would like to introduce my colleague and friend, Michelle, and she'll introduce herself.
Hello, everyone. My name is Michelle Rosenthal, and I'm a capacity building evaluation coach at the Capacity Building Center for States. My specialization is culturally responsive, equitable evaluation, and I'm really excited to be with you all here today to talk about the Family Empowerment and Leadership Academy evaluation.
Thank you, Michelle. As Michelle just stated, that we're going to be giving you an overview of a journey that we took together with regards to debuting the Family Empowerment Leadership Academy, affectionately known as the FELA. But before we get started with that, I really wanted to just give a shout out and really appreciate hearing from Gabe and Palm and sharing their lived experience and their journey around being a constituent in services in child welfare to becoming change agents. And I also have lived experience. I grew up in kinship care, and I also, as a parent, was a constituent of our child welfare system in Connecticut. And the journey to becoming someone who wanted to partner with child welfare is a very personal one, but I'm very passionate about it because I feel that without us being able to be a part of the change, then transformational change and effective practice and services for children, youth, and families cannot happen. So I really appreciate hearing from Gabe and Palm and their perspective. So we want to talk to you about this incredible journey that we took around the Family Empowerment Leadership Academy, which is affectionately, like we call it, the FELA, which is a center tool. That concept really came from family consultants such as myself, because we had worked in our own state jurisdictions around working in partnership with our local child welfare agencies. And we thought that, there needed to be some learning experience where people could come together, family leaders, youth leaders, as well as agency staff, to really come together and learn some key concepts, some skill building around authentic engagement and meaningful partnership and shared leadership. And being able to do that all together in the room really levels the playing field, but also models the fidelity of really understanding of how to partner together. And so we, along with the center staff, created this curriculum-based tool. And back in 2015, and Michelle and myself had the pleasure of actually debuting it and training it with an agency jurisdiction of partners, and back in 2020 virtually during the pandemic. So I'm going to pause here and just and ask Michelle to kind of tell us a little bit about her experience, what she knew about the FELA coming in, and just what the experience was like for you as an evaluation coach to really be able to evaluate and give the credibility of the FELA it's rich, what it richly deserved when we actually debuted it for a jurisdiction.
Thanks, Dee. First, I want to say that I was very honored to be invited to participate in imagining an evaluation and what a first evaluation of the FELA could look like. I think one of the key takeaways for jurisdictions that are thinking about Family Empowerment and Leadership Academy is to really consider how this particular training was in alignment with the jurisdiction's goal to really increase family engagement as part of their systems change, and to think about what a training would look like for authentic partnership, and sort of not assuming that everybody already shared that common language or the skill set to do it, but it was something that the jurisdiction and its workforce needed to prepare for. And in the same way, our team, our center team, that included multiple roles, also prepared for those FELA trainings. And as Dee mentioned, they were virtual. So we took, I think another piece of this that is often the case for capacity building evaluation coaches is it's important to be involved in the beginning. So because I was part of that team and that planning, I could ask questions and learn more about the learning objectives. And those learning objectives become tailored for particular jurisdictions. But in my ability to participate in that planning, I could craft an evaluation survey or items or self-efficacy questions around learning that were very targeted and specific to the goals of the jurisdiction for that particular FELA training, and actually for each module. So we were able to really do that virtually by administering at the end of each training, kind of reserving about 8 minutes to do an online survey that included both like scaled items, but also open-ended questions that could really inform that process as it evolved throughout the training period. Thanks, Dee.
Yeah, thanks, Michelle. I really appreciate you sharing that, because I really want us to talk a little bit more and share with our audience like what a dynamic process it really was. It was intentional. It was well thought out in terms of the planning of the FELA. We adapted it for virtual learning. We would prefer to do it in person, and we have since had a training, a learning experience for a jurisdiction in person, which was actually a couple of weeks ago. And it was not only with jurisdictional staff, but it was with community partners, with key stakeholders, youth, birth parents, kinship parents, foster resource parents, all coming together and having this shared learning experience together. And so what's the great thing about the FELA is that we can adapt it virtual or in person, but really adapt it to whatever the needs of the jurisdiction. And the one that Michelle and I trained together on was, training the staff. They wanted to know how can they build their capacity so that when they do onboard those family leaders, that they had the understanding and the knowledge that they're doing it the most effective way, and being able to know that they are partnering in the truest sense of the word. And so that was what was great about that experience is that we actually had a jurisdictional partner who also was a part of that planning team. And we met all together bi-weekly to really come up with the concepts, the components of what we were going to be training in each unit. We talked about it. We adapted it to the jurisdiction by giving jurisdictional examples. So it really made the experience more personal for the participants and much more engaging. We also listened to what they told us with regards to that rapid feedback, data feedback loop that Michelle was talking about, which was really great because we started off, with doing, having some teaching and some coaching, understanding definitions, and then we would have breakout groups where they would go into their own individual breakout rooms and be able to practice some of those concepts and then come back and have larger group discussions. And we heard from them that they really enjoyed that process. They wanted to have more opportunities where they could practice and share and come together. And I also think it was really important because during the pandemic, they didn't have an opportunity to really spend time together. So this was another opportunity for them to really have a bonding experience through this FELA tool so that they would be able to understand and share and learn from one another. So we were able to recreate that for them and also be able for them to be able to learn those key concepts. Michelle, you have anything else you want to add?
Yeah, thank you, Dee. There's a couple of points that you made so beautifully that I want to really kind of circle back to and talk about how they are specific to some of the strategic choices around incorporating and integrating evaluation. And really, when I talk about evaluation here, I think the way we frame that was really learning through data and information and respecting participants' time and really respecting their time to complete the surveys. And then what we would do is we would immediately in the next module or session begin that session with, because it was virtual, a slide deck of the results. So they were able to see in aggregate for confidentiality what they were learning as a team, because they really became a learning team, and what the questions remained, which helped Dee and the others as trainers, but also helped us think through what the data story of this jurisdiction was on this FELA journey, because this was really a pilot test, if you will, about engagement and partnership. And this panel is about authentic partnership with those with lived experience. And it's interesting to think about how the FELA can be tailored specifically to the communities and target populations served by a particular child welfare department, but also thinking about these partnerships that span both inside and outside child welfare. So in this case, really thinking about the commitment that the workers had to preparing and building their own capacity to do better in terms of family engagement, to really improve and reflect on areas still needed for growth and areas that had really improved as a result of the training. So that was an exciting data story to be able to share and for everyone to be able to see collectively and to think about what partnerships are needed to improve that type of engagement and to really prepare for integrating and centering lived experience as you think about transformational systems change.
All of what you said, Michelle, just like put a big smile on my face because I just remembered like just the experience that we had with the jurisdictional partners and the participants in that training. It was remarkable because there was trust in the room. There was trust and a relationship that was built even prior to me becoming a part of the team. There was a relationship that was built of trust, and people really were open to the possibilities of learning something different and something new. And even as someone who has lived experience, I felt just like an equal partner in the room. It wasn't like, okay, this is someone with lived experience that's just going to share a story. This was a partner who had, the competencies and the skills to be able to kind of shepherd this and pilot this FELA training in a way that would lead to transformational learning. And that was something that we did hear from all of the participants that that participated through several months of training, because this was several months. We trained each unit. It was like 13 units. We trained each unit every other week. And that was because the participants wanted us to train it every other week. You remember we started off once a month, and they were like, no, they enjoyed it so much. And they loved the idea of coming together to learn authentic engagement and meaningful partnership and shared leadership, having the opportunity to learn together, and really us having some deeper conversations, even around, diversity, equity, and inclusion. We had those conversations. We were able to even tailor it even further to talk about those things that really isn't a part of the FELA training yet, but it is something that we were able to pay special attention to. And it was because we had that relationship, but also because we were so very intentional in the ways in which we delivered the training, the way that we thought about it, thought about the participants, what they needed, what they shared that they needed with us. We challenged each other through the process. I learned so much around evaluation and making sure that, the data tells the story, because we really wanted the data to tell the story about the experience, not just the technical pieces, but the entire experience that we all shared together. And it was probably one of the best training experiences that I've ever had in my life. And so I really, really appreciate you, Michelle, for being such a great partner, sharing the same values that the two of us have, and as well as others, to be able to bring this to life for the participants that really had this experience with us.
Thank you, Dee. Thank you for that. I wanted to also share a couple of key takeaways for those of you that are interested in the audience and considering doing this important work and looking for tools to support that work. I think one of the great things about this training that we were able to do is we could partner with the child welfare CQI staff and data managers in order to ensure that we are in alignment with looking at continuous quality improvement and goals for family engagement, and also identify areas of need for workforce training in particular. So I think that that's an important piece in terms of partnership and authentic partnership and how this works. Another key takeaway is the ability for us to really include evaluation as a learning process for everyone involved, especially as we fine-tune new trainings on family empowerment and how lived experience is centered in the important work of improving equity within child welfare systems. And along with that, really piloting evaluation approaches to meet everyone where they are in terms of doing that work, and being able to really look at that together, both quantitatively and qualitatively, I think it's also important to mention that folks really improved over the course of the training in the learning objectives. So we can definitely share that with you all. And Dee, I wanted to ask you what your thoughts are about why evaluation was important to you to be a part of this first pilot of the FILA.
Yeah, thanks, Michelle. I wanted it to be a part of it because I felt like all of the things that you mentioned, but also it adds that credibility piece to this tool that was created. And the concept came from family consultants and was co-created and designed with center staff. And so we always know, we feel it in our gut that, engagement, authentic engagement is the way to go. And we know that it has led to some changes, but oftentimes it's not, it's not documented. And I felt like it was really important to make sure that we had that evaluation piece to give the credibility for this important and effective tool, so that we could actually do more of this in other jurisdictions as we since have. And so because of that, we've been able to train in other jurisdictions and have some transformational learning, still getting calls to this day about, can you come back? So I think just because we were able to give that evaluation piece, give it the credibility to the FILA tool, I think it has made all the difference. And so I really appreciate working with you. And I also want to talk about, just briefly about, when you're integrating lived experience, as you look at myself and Gabe and Palm, I hope you see the possibilities of what we can do together in this work. It doesn't have to be something just that talks about, our stories, but when we're giving an opportunity to partner, we can do some really dynamic things. So I really, really appreciate this opportunity that Michelle and I had to share with you all. And yeah, thank you so much. Take care.
And I wanted to say thank you to Joey for that introduction and pass it back to him now. Thank you.
Thank you, Dee and Michelle, for that in-depth discussion on the FILA. I'd like to invite all the speakers back. And yeah, we have Gabe, Palm, Michelle, and Dee. And I want to put a question in the room. What do you want folks to walk away with today? And Gabe, maybe we could start with you.
Sounds good, Joey. Thank you. I think in reflecting on everything that we've heard today, most notably Palm's great story and the connections that I made between yours and my own, I think the one thing that I want folks to walk away with is the personal value of engaging youth as advisors. I think Palm and I both said that there were times where maybe we didn't speak up and we sat in the back of the room. But ultimately, I know I reflect on my experience and see how much that changed me, both as a professional and as an individual. Engaging youth and those with lived experience as advisors is an incredible tool to use in finding new ways to approach the work, but it also has incredible personal benefit and impact on those being engaged. And I want to make sure that that's lifted to its fullest as we walk away from this session. Palm, I'll let you answer next.
Yes, I just want to say thank you to all the speakers, and then thank you guys for this opportunity to be here with you guys today. I think my big thing that I just want everybody to take away from this is we're people first, every single one of us, without all the labels, without the foster parent, the foster child, the agency worker, case worker, we're all people. And with that comes a lot of differences that we have. And with those differences, it means that we need different kind of services, and we can no longer have this blanket service and expect it to work for everybody. We can't have the same services for every family and expect every family to thrive in the same way. And everything just needs to be a little more catered to the family or the young person or the worker that you're working with. So I think that's the thing I want everybody to take away, is just don't be comfortable with the status quo. Get feedback loops going in your communities, get feedback loops going for your policy and procedure, and be sure that people with lived experience are included on those. And I will pass it over to Dee.
Thank you, Palm. I really like what you said about, the opportunities and the possibilities, because I do believe that when you have those who have lived experience, there's so many opportunities that lead to transformational change. And if we don't have a pathway for which lived experience can actually show that work and be able to be partners in the work, because we can't do this alone, then we're going to continue to perpetuate the same kinds of systems and opportunities that we continue to have, which really doesn't serve children and families. And so I think, the work that we do as lived experience experts is so valuable. And we just need to make sure that we have those opportunities to be able to be co-creators, co-designers, and decision makers at the table. And then the possibilities are endless. And I think the work will be meaningful for the field as well as those of us who have experienced the system. And I'll pass it to Michelle.
Thank you, Dee. Thank you for sharing that. I think the key nugget from an evaluation lens is the importance of authentic partnering to really lift up lived experience as critical foundational data for defining what counts as success in child welfare. And so often, I think when evaluation comes in, it can be perceived as a transactional process. Did we collect the data? What are the numbers? And I really want to encourage that commitment to evaluation as a learning process, whereby we really learn what's working and what's transformational by focusing on and centering lived experience. I'm going to turn it over to Joey.
Yeah, I just want to thank everyone for joining our session. I'm hoping that all the shares that were shared in our session just it creates a spark in people's hearts, whether you're a lived expert yourself or you're at a child welfare leadership and you're thinking of ways to utilize lived experts in your jurisdiction. I hope that spark becomes a flame and that flame becomes a fire. My own journey in my lived experiences, sometimes we had to knock on doors and we would say the system. And then it wasn't until that my voice became part of the system that I understood the richness of lived expertise. And here I am with all these beautiful people and this experience on this session. So I hope that you all take that with you and that you utilize our resources as well. And once again, I want to thank you all and be well. And we'll see you in the field.